Shadow of the Colossus, a fan favorite among the gaming community, a game where you only fight bosses, and yeah, that's pretty much it. The core gameplay loop is strictly you, the player, running around and fighting bosses. But why is a gameplay loop, which seems to lack so much content, be filled with it? And how did it change games as we know them today? Back during its release during 2005, games followed the same architecture: enter an area, defeat small enemies, and eventually make it to that area's boss or big enemy to progress the story. This is what I like to call quantity over quality. And I just want to preface this by saying I'm not saying these games back then lacked overall quality. I am merely speaking of the architecture behind the core gameplay loop. Games like Fable, God of War, and Resident Evil 4 are amazing. The story they tell, the gameplay, they're all great, but it consists of the same architecture. Fight smaller enemies, fight big enemy, progress story, quantity over quality. Now let's look at Shadow of the Colossus. The game follows Wander and their horse Agro, who set into the Forbidden Lands to revive a seemingly dead girl. Brandishing the ancient sword which sealed away an evil god many years ago, he's confronted by the being who says, "If you kill all 16 giant walking statues, I will revive the girl." And so Wander sets out through the Forbidden Lands in search of these giant moving statues in order to honor the deal made by the god. The first thing that catches everyone's attention is the abundance of nothing. There is seemingly nothing other than small shrines you can pay your respects to and silver-tailed salamanders that increase your grip strength. There are no enemies, there are no cities, villages, no POIs other than the boss's areas. This was a new architecture for the gaming industry, one that has not been seen before, a seemingly empty world where the only enemy are the main bosses you have to fight, and that portrays a lot about the story of Shadow of the Colossus. Derealization, dissonant, uncanny. These words perfectly describe what you and Wander are feeling in this world. A separation from reality. Things aren't right. They don't follow a certain pattern I'm used to. This is what the game is trying to convey to you. You are not supposed to be here. The place is called the Forbidden Lands for a reason. Even the natural environment is off. The sky is a mixture between sunny and about to rain. Or it could have just rained and is now turning sunny. Yet there's a pleasant breeze that wafts the grass. These three elements are not things we are used to experiencing in nature, and this leads to quality over quantity. The game's surroundings are now telling you a story and conveying a deep message to the player on a subconscious level. Now let's focus on the main enemies you fight, the Colossi. Just the design alone, they seem otherworldly, but yet share similar features to what we see in nature: quality over quantity. The way you fight these bosses are methodical, puzzle-like. You can't go in the fight swinging your sword hoping to hit. There are clear weak points on the enemies, which makes it seem more like a puzzle than violent fighting. The more patience you have and the more strategic you are, the better you are rewarded for it. Games like Dark Souls were inspired by this quality over quantity style gameplay, but instead of abundant weak points for an enemy, Dark Souls made every enemy a strategic encounter, and it's because of Shadow of the Colossus that Souls-like games exist. Even outside of Souls-like games, there are more and more games nowadays that harbor this architecture in their own way, on emphasizing strategy and not button mashing, an emphasis on patience, not gimmicks, quality over quantity.